In Eldridge, and along with my classmates Marissa Vasquez and Felicia Tackett, we've put together this reading intervention case study. We hope that you will benefit from our observations. A brief overview: we have 4 students: Aaron, Charlie, Felicia, and Molly. Each of them have different reading needs. Some are proficient and some are still struggling. And since these children are different, we have 4 different intervention strategies to use for each one. But our one goal is improved literacy. Let's meet our first student, Aaron. Aaron's a bright 4th grader. He's very active in our classroom. He discusses all the class discussions, and he's very capable of talking about very complex ideas. However, he's struggling to decode words, which then impacts his reading fluency. Aaron would benefit from spending more time with blending sounds to make words. So our strategy is just that, to blend sounds in multisyllabic words. So our plan is this: working one-on-one with Aaron, we will use an oral activity of blending sounds together to make words. We're going to start off with 2-syllable words and then progress on to multisyllabic words. The second phase will be a visual activity where Aaron's given cards with a sound on them for him to blend into a word. And those words are written on index cards that are cut in half for him to put together into syllables and then to blend. The third phase of the activity would be an encoding activity where the teacher will read a word and will write down the sounds he hears to make that word, and then he will spell it. So our objective with this activity is to increase Aaron's ability to blend the sounds to create the words. Our resources: we have a list of 2, 3, and 4-syllable words, which you would find a link to at the end of our presentation. You have those words written on index cards and cut into syllables, and then also a whiteboard and dry erase marker for the spelling activity. Step 1 would be to to read those 2-syllable words and have Aaron blend them orally into a word. So using the words that were cut up in the index cards, Aaron would have to identify the sounds for each syllable as the card is turned over. Then once all the cards are laid out, he would blend those sounds together and read the word. Step 3 would be using the whiteboard and the dry erase marker. We would give him one of the words on that list by syllable and have Aaron then write the sounds that he hears on the whiteboard, and then write the word on the whiteboard. So as you move forward, as he masters 2-syllable words, you progress on to 3-syllable and to 4-syllable words using these same steps. This activity would align with Aaron's deficit in decoding. This activity steps him through the process of hearing and seeing the sounds, then blending them into words, and then finally being able to spell them. His growing familiarity with the sounds will build his decoding skills. Our hopeful outcome is by increasing the complexity of the words throughout the intervention, Aaron will become more familiar with certain sounds, and then will be able to blend them into larger words, thus strengthening his decoding skills. So to track this, as the activity is underway, the teacher will note which words were difficult for Aaron to blend and then revisit those words during a later lesson before moving on to the next level of 3-syllable or 4-syllable words. As far as work samples, teacher will keep a log of how many words Aaron correctly blends during the exercises. The log will include the date, the words practiced, and their syllable count, which words were blended correctly, and how many attempts were made to correctly blend the words. Let's talk about our next student, Charlie.
Meet Charlie. Charlie is a 5th grade student, and Charlie struggles with decoding, which in turn affects his fluency in reading comprehension skills. So, for Charlie and our intervention with Charlie, our strategy is decoding with age-appropriate text. Charlie needs to take a step back to being able to decode with unfamiliar words. He needs a synthetic phonics approach, which will in turn boost his reading fluency and understanding and his reading comprehension overall. Due to Charlie's age, I believe he could benefit from an activity geared toward older students, which would be decodable text. We don't want Charlie to feel like he is behind or that he is doing something that kindergartners might do. So I would choose the books Hidden in Paris, which would hopefully capture Charlie's interest that is more geared toward his age. Hidden in Paris offers a 10-book set of decodable readers for older readers who are in the early stages of learning to read. Each book covers alternative vowel and consonant spellings and common Latin suffixes. So the objective would be to get Charlie more comfortable sounding out unfamiliar words, and doing that by practicing them on a daily basis. Along with this series, Charlie could answer comprehension questions, dig into the vocabulary, point out grammar, and practice world building as we are working on his reading comprehension. So on the right here, you'll see the resources, which is the books 1 through 10, each of them with a different title, with different vowels and consonant sounds and spellings. So the steps we would take would be: step 1, introduce Charlie to the book series by giving him an overview to see where his interest is in it. So the overview of these books is: Ash starts her day trying to cross a river on a rope. By the end of the day, she and her 2 friends are involved in a mysterious trail that will take them to Paris. What I've noticed is that most kids love a good mystery, and especially with a lot of adventure in there. So hopefully that will pique Charlie's interest. Step 2, assess Charlie to see what sounds he's struggling on and which sounds we need to really hone in on and focus. So this could be if we wanted to give him an ORF assessment and then record it and look back and see which words that he really struggled on, and which sounds were the hardest for him. Step 3, begin by reading the first page to Charlie and review what sound each letter makes and the sound that that particular book is going to repeat as you read it. Step 4, allow Charlie to begin reading and getting familiar with the words in the book. So for example, book 1 focuses on the U, UE, and U space E. So to make sure that he has a really firm grasp on those words and sounds, so he will be able to read with better fluency, and hopefully that will get him more confident as he reads these books. And then step 5, continue reading for 30 minutes each day to build up fluency. After a few days, hopefully Charlie will be completely invested and want to know where the story goes each day. So this activity aligns with Charlie's struggle to decoding words and will improve his decoding skills. Each day, Charlie will grow stronger in his decoding skills and build up his fluency and comprehension level with each page and sound that he masters. And after some time, hopefully it will get him back on track to a 5th grade reading level. The anticipated outcome for Charlie is to become more confident in his reading skills, while us as the teachers are aware and using age-appropriate material. After practice with his decoding skills, he will begin to read more fluently and be able to comprehend the material he is reading instead of just guessing at words that he's not familiar with or that he doesn't know. And as research has shown, repeated exposure strengthens phonemic awareness, orthographic mapping, and morphological awareness, which in turn leads to improved word recognition, fluency, and reading confidence. So as a teacher, you could note which sounds are more difficult and adjust with which books are the most beneficial for Charlie as the intervention occurs. You can also monitor his progress by completing an ORF assessment every other week to track how his decoding skills are progressing and see if he's moving in the direction that we want. Overall, hopefully by the end of this intervention, Charlie will feel way more confident with his peers and with his reading skills.
Thank you, Marissa.
Meet Charlie. Charlie is a 5th grade student, and
sorry about that. Thank you, Marissa. Now we're going to have Felicia talk about Felicia and her needs.
Felicia's difficulty. Felicia is a proficient reader. She doesn't require intervention for foundational skills. She would, however, benefit from enrichment to enhance literacy skills such as comprehension and vocabulary. These are skills that she will use throughout her school years, and it would benefit her greatly to start enriching them now. A strategy that could be used is small group activity to help with comprehension skills, such as story elements and themes. In a small group, Felicia will analyze a fictional text called A Bad Case of Stripes by David Shannon. She will use a SCOOP organizer. SCOOP stands for setting, characters, the oh no or the problem, order of events, and then the problem solved or solution. Using this graphic organizer, she will fill in each section about the story. Once she maps out the story, she will be asked open-ended questions to help determine the theme of the story. The objective of this enrichment is to reinforce understanding of story structure and how it supports the theme. Strengthen inferring skills by connecting elements to the theme. The resources that would be needed is the book A Bad Case of Stripes or a printed copy. The SCOOP organizer from This Reading Mama, sticky notes, and pencils. Here are the steps. The teacher will review story elements using the SCOOP acronym. Together, they will preview the text, reminding Felicia to pay attention to the clues about this author's message. Felicia will read the book and take notes on her post-its, marking key elements like characters, setting, etc. She will then fill out her SCOOP graphic organizer. The teacher will check the organizer for understanding. The teacher will ask guided questions such as, what lesson do you think that Camellia learned? What did the character change? What message do you think the author wanted us to know? She will then use her organizer to write a theme or message for the story. It aligns with language comprehension, verbal reasoning, and literacy knowledge strands of the reading road. It supports explicit comprehension instruction based on the science of reading. What we would see, or the outcomes and benefits, would be improvements in her ability to recognize the theme, improvements in connecting her story elements, developing critical thinking skills. Once she is done, or even during the process, we will be tracking progress and using assessments. Our notes would be the teacher will record observation of Felicia's ability to explain the theme, cite supporting story elements, and answer inferential questions. Work samples: Felicia's completed SCOOP graphic organizer and written theme statement will be kept in a portfolio to show growth over multiple texts. There will also be a oral reading fluency that will still be done periodically to monitored using a 60-second ORF measure to ensure her decoding fluency continues to support her comprehension.
Thanks, Felicia. Now let's talk about Molly. Molly's a second grader. She's struggling to grasp the meaning of words, to understand the sentence structures, and make connections with text. And although she has really strong decoding and word recognition skills, her language comprehension abilities are weak. For Molly, we need to work on strengthening her language comprehension. The strategy that we're going to use is we're going to do a focused reading of informational and narrative texts. In order to do this, we're going to help her to understand and retain what she's reading. We need to read informational and narrative texts in a one-on-one setting, stopping frequently through the text to identify main components and details. To do this, we'll start reading at grade 1 level text to identify the main parts of the text, stopping frequently to ask questions, and then use a graphic organizer to write down the information as the text is read. Then once she gains confidence and mastery of first grade text, we'll move up to second grade texts, which will be a little more challenging for her. Our objective is to help Molly understand what to look for and to listen for while she's reading a text. We want her to be able to identify what the big ideas, the details, the event sequencing, the type of text, and like I like to call them, the 5 W's of the text: the who, what, where, when, why. We also want her to be able to answer comprehension questions that will allow her to participate in class discussions. So for resources, first we're going to start out with a grade 1 level text of narrative and informational texts, then move on to second grade level reading texts, both narrative and informational texts. We're going to use a graphic organizer for the type of text that's used. and also a reading bookmark to ask her for asking questions. We have both of these resources linked at the end of the presentation, and she'll also need a pencil. So the steps in this process is to collect a variety of first and second grade reading texts and let Molly choose which one she might be interested in reading. We would provide her with a printed graphic organizer and explaining to her that taking notes during reading can be helpful to help her remember what to read. We're also going to use the peer or the crowd method to help Molly Molly ask her questions about the text. After Molly selects which text to read, we're going to ask initial questions about the text. For example, what is the title and what could the text be about? What does she think we're going to learn about the text? Before starting the read aloud, we're going to explain that we're going to stop frequently to answer questions about the text and to fill out the graphic organizer with the information that she's learning from the text. We'll also stop frequently and ask Molly open-ended questions such as why are certain things happening, or the predictions did she make, what would happen next, what does she think is going to happen next. During the read aloud, we'll stop at long complex sentences and work with Molly to break those down into smaller parts to understand what's being said and add any pertinent information to her graphic organizer. This activity, as far as alignment, it allows Molly to become more familiar with language structures, background knowledge, vocabulary, and literacy knowledge. In time, she'll improve her language comprehension as identified on Scarborough's reading rope. Outcomes and benefits, we're hoping Molly will get into the habit of listening or reading to sift out the information that she needs to gain from text. She now will know how to use a graphic organizer and how to collect and document information. She'll also have trained her brain to listen for key information and vocabulary from the text in order to answer questions and participate in class discussions. As far as tracking and progress and assessment, anecdotal notes, the teacher notes will be kept documenting Molly's progress in how she's correctly answering teacher-initiated questions before, during, and after each reading exercise. As far as work samples, the correctly completed graphic organizers and pre- and post tests over the reading texts will be kept for progress monitoring. So what have we learned? We've learned about 4 different students who had 4 different needs and all needed a different intervention strategy. Our goal is to improve their literacy. We'd like to thank you for listening today. Here's a list of our references with links if you're interested in checking out some of the materials that we used for our research. And we'd like to thank you for your time and your attention. We hope you have a great summer and make the best of what's left from it.